Hi, everybody. Today is Monday, February 23rd, 2026, and our dear friend or brother Pepe Escobar is here with us. Welcome back, Pepe.
Nima, only for you. It's 11 o'clock in Moscow. I am shattered because I had another crazy day. Tomorrow I have another even crazier day. But for you, of course. And obviously, today is wow. We don't even know where to start. And very important, our conversation is one day before the 4 years of the special military operation. So we are at another one of those crossroads of history pregnant with meaning.
Exactly.
Okay, Nima, let's rock and roll.
Exactly. Let's start. Please hit the like button, helping us reaching more people. Pepe, let me start with what is happening in the West Asia, in the Middle East, the escalation that is happening, the way that Donald Trump has brought everything that he could send to the Middle East. And Iran on one side is prepared, the United States is prepared, the embassies of foreign countries are asking their people to get out of Iran. What
Mhm.
is your assessment? What is your understanding of what's going on right now?
Well, we were talking before the start of this very, very important conversation. Nima and I were talking that we have reached the razor's edge in terms of a fateful decision. And the whole thing was brought by the President of the United States himself. So anything that he does, any decision that he makes, it's on him. It's his personal responsibility. Don't forget, we're talking about the man who destroyed the JCPOA, the Iran nuclear deal, which was agreed in Vienna in 2015, then ratified by the UN. And this is a deal that was uh, basically legalized by the UN, by all the participants of the discussions in Vienna. I was there at the time. I followed on an everyday basis in Vienna before they finally reached a deal, and then it went to the UN for ratification. So now, since he cannot have the deal that he wants, which is basically a capitulation of Iran, this is where we are in this fateful week. There may be a last chance saloon on Thursday in Geneva. We all know that it's going to start on very, very nasty terms because basically Trump gave another ultimatum to Tehran, matter a little more than for 72 hours, let's put it this way, max. And of course, he wants a capitulation. The Iranian diplomats, with the Foreign Minister Arakshi right in the front line, they keep saying as politely as possible, we are open to an adult diplomatic discussion, and we may have some concessions regarding only the Iranian nuclear program, nothing to do with the ballistic missile program or the support to the axis of resistance. This was part of the triad, the diktats imposed by, of course, Israel and by Trump 2.0. So, whatever happens after this last chance saloon in Geneva, the decision, according to many of our close friends, independent analysts, echoes coming from the Beltway, from Washington, etc., is that the decision to attack Iran, we still don't know how, has already been made. So now we are in the how stage. This means how this massive armada, which, of course, as the bunch of cowards that they are not in the Persian Gulf. They are not in the Sea of Oman. They are very far away in the Arabian Sea. They are not very far from the Pakistani coast in the north. So, how this massive armada, etc., is going to be employed to do what Is it going to be a sort of mini shock and all like against Iraq in 2003? Is it going to be a decapitation strike, which is a typical Israeli procedure? They're going to go after Ayatollah Khamenei and the political leadership of Iran, including members of the parliament of the Majlis and members of the IRGC commanding structure. So all the options are on the table. Whatever Neo Caligula, the undisputed tariff champion of the world, decides, he is between a rock and a hard place. If he decides not to attack, his donors, the people who gave him hundreds of millions of dollars for his re-election campaign, the international Zionist axis, which is not only the Beltway, New York, New Jersey, but the international financial Zionist axis all over the world, Atlanticist, and with tentacles all across Europe and in many parts of the world. They're going to go for him. And of course, don't forget, literally, practically all the nodes of the industrial military complex, they want this attack against Iran. This in terms of how Washington and the system works in the Beltway, Washington, Maryland, Virginia, and inside the industrial military complex. And that includes everybody, weapons makers, CIA, Pentagon, all sorts of that acronym of intel agencies, media, think tanks, academia, practically everybody. They are in favor, and not only since the start of Trump 2.0. For 47 years, they are in favor of let's attack and then let's get rid of the mullahs in their very childish, trademark, stupid denomination. So he is, if he is seriously considering not to attack, he is a minority. Even as a president, even with the power to, like one of the old Caesars, that's it, death to all of you inside the Colosseum. But he is constrained, restrained, and his margin of maneuver is practically zero. Even if we have, as we do, there are a few people with an IQ over room temperature in the Pentagon, especially because they gamed all the scenarios in case of an attack on Iran and in case of a devastating Iranian response, and everything is included. Attacks on US military bases all across West Asia, blocking the Strait of Hormuz in different ways, you name it. Direct response against Israel is going to be much, much more devastated than during the 12-day war, etc. Still, his instincts may be telling him that this is political suicide, assuming he listens to voices of reason. We cannot count these voices of reason inside his inner circle. As you know, Nima, in our audience, most of you know, because they are a bunch of extremely mediocre functionaries. The absolute majority, mega Zionists, purveyors of fake news in terms of everything that happens in Iran. They never been to Iran. They don't know shit about Iran, not to mention Persian culture, Persian history, etc. So obviously, when you have this sycophantic echo chamber around you, you cannot make an informed decision. And if you compound all that, which is already a lot, with the fact that this guy does not read anything, he does not read not only intel reports, he doesn't read books, he doesn't read anything. He only sees Fox News, and the most effective sound bite is what registers in his brain for maybe 5 seconds until somebody whispers something stupid in his brain, and then there's another 5 seconds. That's it. He has the attention span of a 4-year-old, as magisterially described by our friend Jeffrey Sachs. So how can a character like that make an informed decision of a war that, if it is launched, even if it's a mini strike or a localized strike or whatever, carries the potential of setting fire to the whole of West Asia and beyond, across the global south. And if there is a cherry on this incandescent volatile cake, he would be launching a war against three BRICS at the same time. Not only Iran, but Russia and China, linked to Iran by their own strategic partnerships. In the case of Russia and Iran, very serious because it includes exchange of military hardware and software. And in the case of China, there are 20-year-long strategic partnership valued at least $450 billion, because for China, Iran is a matter of national security as one of China's top energy suppliers and a key actor in the new Silk Roads and in the east to west connectivity corridors across Eurasia, and most of them go through Iran, including the new one that the Chinese are ready to invest on it. Because once again, everything that goes through Russia because of sanctions is blocked. Chinese companies, for instance, they cannot use the Trans-Siberian because of sanctions traveling through Russian territory. So the next best option, which is already being used, is via Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, Turkmenistan, Iran, and then Turkey, and all the way to Europe. It's one of the declinations of the middle corridor. And then there are other declinations. Some go through the Caucasus as well. But Iran is in the middle of whatever east to west corridor, part of the Belt and Road Initiative, part of the New Silk Roads. And this is, once again, the relationship between Persia and China since times immemorial, since, for instance, the 7th century, where the two top powers in Eurasia, and for that matter in the world, were Sassanid Persia and the Tang dynasty in China. And guess what they were doing, Nima? Trade. Silk Roads, let's trade with each other via Central Asia, but it was Persia trading with China and vice versa. So, these links is not a matter of a mere strategic partnership signed a few years ago. No, this goes back in history. So China will have Iran's back at several levels. Some we do know, which is Chinese raiders, Chinese research ships, Chinese ultra high-tech information that is being passed in real time to Iran. Some we don't know, which is part of lots of Chinese cargo planes who landed in Iran this past few weeks, as many as a lot of Russian cargo planes, IL-76, who landed in Iran this past few weeks, the same thing. So diplomatically, of course, they are supported. In terms of BRICS, they are supported. In terms of regimenting the global south to understand that this is a war against three BRICS, and at the same time, a war against the global south as a whole. If Trump starts this war, this is the culmination of the new administration in the United States war, hybrid, otherwise, including hot, against the global south, against BRICS, in this case, against three BRICS, or even four BRICS, if we count India, because this is a war against the Russia, Iran, India connectivity corridor, not only against the Chinese New Silk Roads. So this is a war of the Americans and the Zionist International against four top BRICS, their connectivity corridors, and the integration of Eurasia as a whole. And this is something that anybody in the global south, you can be in the Argentinian Pampa, or you can be in the Sahel, or you can be in the middle of Sulawesi in Indonesia. Anybody can understand. This is a war against us, the global south. Obviously, the megalomaniac in the White House, he cannot think along these terms. He doesn't even know what BRICS means or what global south means. He only cares about his megalomaniac dreams of receiving Nobel Prize, winning the midterms. Well, it's very simple. If he does that, he already lost the midterms. And he's going to be reduced to the role of a lame tariffed duck starting the end of this year. So if he thinks along these terms, and he does, he would refrain from attacking. He can come up with some sort of strike somewhere, picking up the phone and telling the Iranians, look, I'm going to bomb so and so everything is evacuated, no civilian victims, so he can sell to the world. Look, I struck Iran again. Remember that he struck Iran before. He said, we obliterated their nuclear program. Mega fake news, because now he wants to attack Iran and bomb Iran again against the nuclear program that was obliterated in the first place. Oh, this is okay. It sounds like a circus, the way I'm telling you how it works, but it is a circus. It's a circus of overlapping fake narratives. But now, in the middle of all this overlapping of fake narratives, there is this razor's edge decision. Whatever he decides, the consequences are going to be ominous. If he decides for any sort of attack, including subcontracting the attack to Israelis, so he can always tell American public opinion and the rest of the world, look, we didn't start this thing. It was the Israelis. So now we have to protect Israel. They are actually considering this subterfuge as well. It doesn't matter, because the response from Iran will be there. The support by Russia and China to Iran will be there. And he cannot fool the whole global south at the same time. So that's where we are, Nima. It's one of the, okay, every week we are at a crossroads, but this one is the real deal, because this one will seal what's going to happen from now on in the major battlefield. And the major battlefield has been clear for quite some time. The main adversary for the empire of chaos, plunder, permanent strikes, fake news, etc., is China. But it's not only China, it's the global south as a whole. It's China and Russia, which are still seen as threats. It's the global south as a whole. So on one side, we have the empire of chaos and the Zionist International, and on the other side, we have BRICS and the global south. This is the battlefield. And whatever happens in Iran is going to be at the center of everything that's going to happen from now on.
Pepe, your understanding of a limited attack on Iran, do you think is that possible from what you are witnessing right now? Donald Trump, a limited attack on Iran, he said that Axios is, I think, one of the most, I don't believe anything that Axios reports in.
No, we cannot. Axios, by the way, you're correct, Nima. I'm just adding to your information. Axios is a Zionist channel, outlet, news agency, media, whatever they call it. It's basically a disinformation outfit run by Zionists, and all their reporters are Zionists as well. So you cannot trust anything that they say, publish, etc., that it is leaked, etc., because it's leaked from Zionists to Zionists, and then it's disseminated by Zionists. So you cannot trust them. Simple.
Yeah. The question is, how does a limited war help the Trump and the Trump administration and Donald Trump himself in order to achieve? I don't know anybody. Do you understand what are the objectives of Donald Trump right now? If the attack, let's assume that he's going to attack Iran. What are the objectives? I think it's so important to ask ourselves, what are the objectives of the United States attacking Iran?
He doesn't have objectives, Nima. The objectives are the Zionist objectives. And there's only one Zionist objective vis-a-vis Iran. Smash Iran as a regional power in West Asia, period. There's nothing else. If you look at what's coming from Tel Aviv, from Israeli politicians, from absolutely ghastly characters like Huckabee, which is now saying what hardcore Zionists have been saying all along. In fact, he let the cat out of the bag completely. Israel has the right to annex anything they want in West Asia. And this is a bloody American saying it, a bloody American politician employed by the President of the United States, to whom he owes favors. It's the only good thing about all this is everything now is in the open. It used to be, couched in diplomatic language or in wishful thinking or, in some nuggets in the middle of an interview. Now it's in the open, not only via the Zionists themselves, but via American politicians and practically everybody in Capitol Hill in Washington. They think alongside the same lines. After all, most of them are bought and paid for by AIPAC. If you go there and you see how AIPAC works, well, I am one of I had the non-privilege to actually see that in front of me in Washington, D.C. years ago. Then you understand everything. So there are no, as you asked correctly, what does Trump himself plan to get out of it? Nothing. And in terms of American the national interests of the United States of America is going to be mega counterproductive, because it's going to have most of the lens of Islam against it. It's going to have a great deal of the Arab world, even those stooges posing as leaders across the Arab world, against it. And some of them already said, don't do anything because you're going to set the whole region on fire. And he's going to have the global south against it, not to mention the top two powers in the global south, Russia and China. So what does the United States gain with an unprovoked, unilateral, once again, fake news-driven attack on Iran? Less than zero. Well, if we go back to what's been happening since the Vietnam War, it's usually the same scenario, right?
Yeah. Pepe, Iranian foreign minister, he feels that he is in the process of negotiations with the United States. And he said recently in his latest interview, he said that as you've mentioned, the only case to be negotiated is the nuclear program of Iran. Iran is not going to negotiate considering the Iranian ballistic missiles. They're not going to negotiate considering the support for the axis of resistance. So on the other hand, he said in Iran, he said, I'm going to do my job. He said to the military, you're going to do your job. Don't care about what I'm doing, what I'm, trying to do. You have to be well prepared for any sort of war. I think the war that is coming, that may happen between Iran and the United States, is going to be a new war that could drastically influence the face of the Middle East. Because it's not just the war between Iran and the United States, that Israel would somehow be more than happy to have this war. After all, Netanyahu is achieving, if that happens, Netanyahu is achieving something that he was wishing for forever. He was always wanted this sort of war happening. But we know that today's West Asia, today's Middle East, is totally different from what it was before October the 7th. Because right now, as you've mentioned, Mike Huckabee said it, that all the Middle East going to be Israel. Israel going to capture all of these countries. They don't have anything to resist against Israel, Pepe. That's why, and Israel, not only Iran, sees Turkey as their enemy as well, because of what's going on in Syria. But when it comes to Iran, focusing on the situation with Iran, do you think that the war would drag on, would somehow drag the United States into some sort of conflict, as we saw in Afghanistan, in Iraq, that is the end. I think China doesn't need to do anything else because Donald Trump is putting the United States in a big trap that he doesn't need anybody to hit him. He's going to get hit by the war that he's creating.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's it. That's it. That's the core of our conversation. There are no gains in terms of national security for the US. There are no gains even for himself personally because he's going to lose the midterms and he's going to become a lame duck if he launches this war. MAGA is against it. 70% of the American electorate on both sides, three sides, including independents, etc., is against this war. They are worried about the deep, 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 deep well, the deep, dark well that they are financially, economically. But from the point of view of an empire in extreme distress, there's only one solution, Nima, and we all know what it is: war. A war that might reconfigure the chessboard financially, economically, politically, with unexpected results, of course, but a shakeup. And of course, once again, deviating attention by American domestic public opinion from their economic ills, changing the subject, changing the narrative, which is something that suits not only the White House, but especially the war criminal sitting in Tel Aviv with his legal troubles. And of course, it answers this, I would say, God given right given by that stupid book that they adore for Zionists everywhere, that they have the right to do what they want in West Asia, conquer everybody and kill everybody, because everybody, after all, is Amalek. They are the only ones entitled to rule over mankind, if possible. They cannot rule on Latin America, on Africa, on Southeast Asia, on China, on India, but they can rule the West, which to a certain extent they already do. So it's pathetic. It's pathetic. I don't waste my time anymore in philosophical debate about Zionism. It's a waste. Everybody knows what they are after. Now it's in the open. And because they run the machinery of government in the United States, no matter who is in power, they can get away with it. So, if this war would not turn into, I would say, there will be tragic overtones for Iran if the war goes on. A lot of people will be killed. But if this was not the case, it would be the perfect excuse in terms of the Iranian counterpunch to finally get rid of all these people. We know it's not that easy. They have nuclear weapons. And obviously, because they are cowards, if they see that they are going down, they will release their invisible nuclear weapons, which are never discussed by even people in the middle of the Sahara Desert knows that Israel is a nuclear power, but you cannot obviously touch the subject, of course, total taboo. So the problem is that in terms, once again, of human suffering for Iran and for people all across West Asia, this is going to be unbearable. But it might be the price to pay to inflict a definitive lesson on the Zionists. Once again, Anima, being realistic, we all know it's not that easy. But it could be the preamble for something much, much bigger later on, of course. And they need a correction, and a correction by history. Not only the horrible karma that they have accumulated, especially these past 2.5 years or so, by committing a genocide and getting away with it. In terms of bad karma, in historical terms, it's up there with some of the worst excesses that we've seen across history. So they need a correction. Maybe it's not going to come now, but now could be the preamble for a much larger correction later on. And we know it's not going to come from those pathetic Arab nations run by, gangsters like MBZ in the United Arab Emirates. It's not going to come from these people. You will have to come from Iran, and you will have to come from the axis of resistance as a whole. Even now, they are debilitated, they are challenged, they are still recovering, but they can still pack a punch. And if this war happens in the next few days, we will have maybe a sample of how strong is their punch at the moment, and it will get much stronger in time. But any scenario, I'm sorry, Nima. I mean, I get very depressed with the big picture of Iran, and why no? How we got to this so quickly with just a little more than a year with this new American administration. Of course, in the beginning, we could suspect that this would happen, but only after a while, maybe perhaps nearing the end of his term. No, it's happening right at the beginning. Right at the beginning. We still have 3 more years of this system ruling the United States. And even if it's a lame duck system, it's still going to be very, very dangerous for the last 2 years. So is the planet ready to become a hostage of this system and of this conjunction between what we could call the United States of Epstein Island, the Epstein Island Syndicate, the direct connection between Western elites, Atlanticist elites, American elites, and all of them being part of this Epstein Island ethos. Now that anybody across the global south can see how it works and how these people, this nodes of the Anglo-American oligarchy, linked to the Atlanticist oligarchy. There are a lot of people in Europe who are directly involved in the Epstein syndicate. How they rule the world, and always thought that they would be completely immune to any repercussions, that they could always get away with it. It's like try to get into the mind of that absolutely ghastly Prince Andrew of the British royal family. His sense of entitlement, according to people who actually met him in person, is something they said it's out of proportion. We've never seen anything like it, because he always knew deep inside that he could get away with anything. So finally, now we have a little bit of poetic justice or a little bit of a karma intervening. So we could expand that on a global level, and maybe the Zionist International, they will meet their karma sooner rather than later. We can only hope, of course. But when you look at the reality, it's terrifying. It's terrifying. It's a great deal of the planet hostage of this small, extremely noxious, toxic oligarchy, and we know now. We even know the names. And
Yeah.
still, nothing happens.
Yeah. I think, Pepe, when it comes to the war with Iran, we have to consider what would be the reaction, not only from Iran, but the other, the axis of resistance. I'm talking about Yemen, Iraq,
Even Iraq
um,
and Hezbollah.
and how they're going to participate, how they're going to get involved in the war.
Yeah,
And because if we assume that Donald Trump and the United States alone going to attack Iran, that's going to be some sort of confrontation between Iran and the United States. But if Iran said that they consider Israel as the main target if the attack happens, and this would bring Israel into the war, and then the acts of resistance come in my opinion. And how do you see the Strait of Hormuz together with Bab el Mandab? These are two important corridors, two important places for the global energy and the global economy. How do you see that playing out in the whole situation?
Well, many of us, myself included, we wrote about that already. My last column about that, I think, was 2 years, 2 years, 2 weeks or 3 weeks ago. This is something that I have been following since the past decade. When I talk to Persian Gulf traders, I talk to old pre-CIA top of the line retired officers. We discussed the projections by Goldman Sachs, derivatives specialists, and the correction of the numbers, and themselves were correcting the numbers by the Bank of International Settlements on the pile of derivatives. And everybody knew that these discussions were, 2017, 2018, 2019, these discussions were open, involved a lot of people. Sometimes, some like Zoltan Poznar from Credit Suisse, sometimes he addressed that directly in his letters to subscribers. This would, if that happens, and if the Strait of Hormuz is blocked one way or another, it doesn't matter how, but if it's blocked, and it doesn't matter how, it can be by mining, it can be by an official, it can be by a partial block, you name it. This will implode the global economy, especially because this pile of derivatives, and the numbers are in the quadrillions. They are not in the trillions, like the Bank of International Settlements had calculated about nearly 10 years ago. So Donald Trump, if he starts this war, and if the Strait of Hormuz is blocked one way or another, it doesn't matter how, he would be responsible for the collapse of the global economy, period. Obviously, this is not on his mind because he doesn't have idiots around him, sycophants, to tell him. This would be the number one consequence, of course. And obviously, he would not listen to finance specialists who could explain that to him in 5 minutes. They're not there, and he's not going to call them. And obviously, they will be blocked by the circle of sycophants. So this could be something extraordinary in terms of the end of an empire in not in slow motion, but in ultra accelerated motion, provoked by the empire itself, by the emperor himself. That's one possibility. The other possibility is Iran could more or less organize an incremental blockade of the Strait of Hormuz, which would be death by 1,000 cuts, once again, on global trade and on the global economy. They have many ways of doing it, many techniques. The timing, they can, variate the timing. So the initiative is on Iran once again. And and depending on the attack, if it's a lightning strike, if it's a shock and awe style strike, if it's a decapitation strike, they have scenarios for their response for all of these counter punches, So, and this is visible, Nima, the way not only Arakshi is speaking, self-confident, unflappable, cool, calm, calculating, and the Iranian army, the IRGC, deputies in the Majlis, everybody seems to be quite self-confident that, look, we gamed everything, we are prepared, we know what's coming, we know it can be devastating, but our response is going to be equally or even more devastating. So that's what changed compared to the 12-day war. We are in a completely different territory. And you have been to Iran recently. I'm sure you sensed this. This is something that you sense epidermically. It's not quantifiable conceptually or intellectually. It's something that you feel, and you feel in your gut. I'm sure you felt this new sense of self-confidence from the part of the Iranian administration. Yes, we can, we can absorb that and then give it back.
and they're prepared. I think they're
I'm asking now. I'm asking you. Did you feel that way when you were in Iran until a few days ago?
no sign of fear.
No sign
You
of
know,
fear. Very
no sign of fear, and
important.
they are all prepared. And when I was in Iran, they were talking about this Delta, special forces that went to Venezuela and all of this nonsense. I said those Delta forces, if they come to Iran, they're going to be smashed. They don't have any sort of understanding what they're going to face in Iran. But Pepe, Iranian culture is so deep that
Yeah.
many people in the West don't understand what is that. You have to, even those people who are not living in Iran, who are outside of Iran for many, many years, like me, I'm
Mm.
outside of Iran for more than 15 years.
15 years.
Yeah,
Mhm,
yeah,
mm,
yeah.
mm,
In Iran lives in you. It doesn't matter if you're not in Iran. Iran is living in you, and when you go to Iran talking with those people, you see the confidence. You saw how they're prepared for the worst case scenario. You somehow are amazed and how these people are so much courageous and they know what they're gonna face. They know how powerful. They don't ignore that the United States is nothing, is a paper tiger, is did. No, they say the United States is powerful and we're gonna respond to that even more powerful
mhm,
if they attack us. This is the understanding on their part. They're not trying to diminish the United States. They're trying to say we're gonna respond the way that we see we are capable of. And I
mhm,
think Iran is totally prepared. You cannot see any sort of fragility, any sort of fear in the mind of those people that I've talked with. And I think that it's going to be a disaster for the United States. I really think that's going to be a disaster for the United States. It doesn't matter how devastating the war could be for Iran.
mhm, mhm,
Iran going to survive. Iran going to come out of this war, and the United States is not going to be able to win this war. This war is one way. Iran is fighting for its survival, and the United States is just making a war of choice. Is a United States is a proxy for Israel in this conflict, and Iran totally understands the situation. That's why Iran would go all in to defeat the United States, and they're gonna do it. I
mm,
believe that they're gonna do it. I don't know what is the understanding of the Trump administration, because these people are not of the mindset of a continuous war. What
mm,
Russia is doing in Ukraine, they feel that they're gonna get in, and what they did in Venezuela, they really feel. I'm so amazed by this sort of you know ignorance in the Trump administration, that they feel that they can go to do something, bomb in Iran, and Iran gonna capitulate. Iran is not gonna capitulate. Iran has fought the United States during 8 years of war against Iraq.
exactly.
In those days, Iran was so weak because it was right after the revolution. There
Mhm,
was nothing, and
mhm,
Iran fought for 8 years. They have lost a lot of young people in those wars. And not only the United States, Soviet Union, Europeans, all together were against Iran in that war. And Iran
mhm,
has fought that war. And I think this time around going to be different because Iran is totally prepared. The situation is not going to be the same as it was before. Russia and China know who is the enemy and
mhm.
why is the main reason of this sort of conflict against Iran. If it could be some sort of American agenda behind this, because we know what is shaping in the East in terms of BRICS and
Right.
how that could be drastically problematic for the United States and for the future of the United States. If they feel that this sort of war can save them, can bring the jobs back in the United States, that's totally wrong. I think this is a fatal mistake on the part of the Trump administration. This is my feeling about it.
No, you're absolutely right, Nima. But okay, it's would be because we are outside. it'll be easy for us to say, okay, let your enemy commit a mistake. Don't interrupt him while he's making such a mistake. The problem is this mistake will, implied in this mistake, it will be a lot of suffering for Iran, for the Iranian people, and there will be blood. That's the problem. It won't stop only with a localized strike or a surgical strike or a decapitation strike. That's the problem, the repercussions, of course. And the empire never learns from its mistakes. They keep committing the same mistakes over and over again. And in terms of desperation or changing the subject, we need a war to change the narrative from our basically all our bubbles imploding, which is what's going to happen sooner rather than later, and the unpayable debt of the United States. Well, the repercussions will be there and they will pay the price. The problem is others will also pay the price. Nima, we have 10 minutes left.
Yeah.
I would like to end our conversation. I would like to end our conversation on a higher level. And as our Chinese friends say, in a more auspicious manner. Instead of talking about war, let's talk about what Iran and Eurasia are doing. Yeah. And that brings us to, you saw it, you told me that you saw it.
Just let me play a part of it.
Please play a part of it for our audience, and then please explain to them. You can go to the site of Press TV and you can watch the full documentary. It's very, very easy. It's now uploaded. It's now online on Press TV's website. Please, Nima.
Yeah.
Some places can't be understood just by looking at a map. You have to walk them, breathe the air, listen to the signs hidden in their silence. Iran is one of those places. I'm Pepe Escobar, geopolitical analyst. For decades, I followed countless trails where power moves, from the west down to the east. But no land has gripped my mind the way Iran has. Rooted in history, yet always reaching toward the future. And a land that once again just might rewrite the rules of the game. So here I am, searching for something that's been largely overlooked and unheard. Tehran, layers and layers of time. It's imperative to come to the brain of Iran's decision-making, where maps are drawn and pieces in the chessboard are moved. Tehran is not just the capital of Iran. It may soon become the capital of a new Eurasian project, somewhere between Shanghai and St. Petersburg. An official invitation to the Sob Film Festival brought me here.
I am a geopolitical analyst. I'm very well known in the West, in Russia.
Iran is a priceless ancient bridge between East and West. Around 2,500 years ago, the Achaemenid Empire built a royal road, a 2,500-kilometer-long route stretching from Susa to Sardis. This grand artery symbolized mastery over land routes and facilitated trade between great empires. During the Sasanian era, the Silk Road, Asia's vital lifeline, ran through the heart of, where else? Iran. Caravans of silk, spices, and precious goods moved along these paths, carrying with them cultures, ideas, and civilizations. In the Middle Ages, Islamic empires expanded both land and sea routes. The ports of the Persian Gulf and the Sea of Oman became Iran's gateways to the world. Today, Iran sits at a strategic crossroads between the Caspian Sea, the Persian Gulf, and the overland routes of the Caucasus and Central Asia. It is striving to transform the north-south and east-west corridors into powerful interconnected arteries, routes that carry not only commerce, but the shifting weight of regional and global geopolitics.
Yeah.
Well, this is this is let's say a little bit of the starter where we set the scene for our trip. And because we went to the Caspian, then we crossed Iran, we went to the Persian Gulf, to the Sea of Oman, to the port of Chabahar, and we ended on the maritime Iran-Pakistan border. So for all of you, our audience, this was an extraordinary adventure for a foreigner. Don't forget, the Iranians trusted a foreigner to tell the story of the most important connectivity corridor in their modern history that they are building with the Russians and with the Indians, the International North-South Transportation Corridor. That's the theme of our documentary. And for me, it was an immense honor and a humbling experience. They said, what do you need? So they gave me an absolutely outstanding pro team, and we traveled together literally everywhere. And of course, we had the necessary permits. We had full access. We could talk to the authorities of the port of Bandar Abbas, for instance. You know, they opened the port for us. In Chabahar, same thing, one of the ports of the future, the same thing. So it's fascinating for all of you to see really on the ground, how do you build a connectivity corridor in the 21st century? It's an absolutely outstanding experience involving three BRICS, very, very important, Russia, Iran, and India. And this is parallel to the Chinese Silk Roads, of course. So this documentary is focused on the North-South corridor because it's the first one in English in the world that starting to tell the story of this new corridor. So, you know, I came up with a very simple formulation that I'm trying to, you know, here in Russia, in all the interviews that I give here in Russia, to look, in the middle of all this hysterical dementia about war on Iran, there's the other side of the story. Make connectivity corridors, not wars, which is, in a sense, the definition of Eurasia integration. This is what Indians understand, Iranians understand, Russians understand, the Chinese understand. So from the other side, you know, the first 50 minutes of our conversation today, Nemo, we only talked about war. Yeah. So, you know, this is the other side of the story. This is what here is being done all across Eurasia. They are building trade arteries, connectivity corridors. They are building ways of very, very similar to what was the mindset during the ancient Silk Roads, you know. So I am an ancient Silk Road fanatic for a long time. Last year, I went to Xinjiang to do a documentary about the Silk Road in Xinjiang, which we're now editing. I hope it's ready within the next 3 or 4 months. And this, in Iran, the chance that they gave me to do this, and hopefully we get a global audience to see our documentary, is basically, you all remember the 60s, then make peace, not war. In the 21st century is make connectivity, not war.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you so much, Pepe.
Thank you.
prazer, como sempre.
Grande prazer. Thank you. And thank you for letting me talk about the documentary. And all of you, our audience, please, you can see the links on my Telegram channel. I'm sure Nima is going to upload the links. But the easiest way...
I'm going to put the link in the description of this video. It's on Press TV, yeah.
Exactly. So if you go to the Press TV website and you go to documentaries, is over there. It's their lead documentary. So I hope all of you, all across the world, Nima's audience, one of the best audiences in the internet everywhere. I hope all of you see it and you see that war is not the solution. Thank you very much.
Exactly. Thank you, Pepe.